Good morning. My name's Mitesh Patelia, and I'm one of the corporate finance partners at Crowe, specialising on IPOs and public company M&A. This morning, I'm joined by one of our clients, Johnathan Satchell, CEO of Learning Technologies Group. Jonathan, thank you for joining us. But before we start on the LTG journey, it'd be quite helpful to just tell us a bit about yourself.
Morning, Mitesh, and thanks for having me on. So I started life as a computer salesman back in the mid-'80s, learned lots about technology and specifying things and customer service and so on in those heady days of the sort of the tech boom at that time, and then found myself by accident falling into a video training business in 1992. That morphed through my first acquisition of a video training business in 97 up in Manchester, and actually dealing with a bit of a turnaround situation. So learned lots during that time. That became the learning company, which I sold in 2005. And then I was lucky enough to be able to buy Epic with our chairman, Andrew Brody, in 2008. And that, of course, is the beginning of the LTG story, although we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. Indeed, and I guess we worked together when we listed Epic or Learning Technologies Group onto the market in 2013 as reporting accountants. How did you find the listing process generally, and any key advice to businesses considering joining the London capital markets?
It was pretty scary. A lot of documentation. We were very well supported by you and Numis. Thank you, because I literally need my hand held from day one. I think one of the things that I really now realize was so useful is the level of appropriate and stringent corporate governance that Andrew always had with us when we were a private business. So as chairman, he insisted on that, and by golly, that stood us in good stead when we came to this process. I found it quite interesting. I'd always been what I call a very open manager with my team about everything that was going on financially, good, bad, indifferent. And of course, that adjustment to where you have to be more discreet about what you're talking about as a public company to your staff, that was an interesting part of the process after listing, and getting used to the regularity of investor relations and so on. But of course, if we look back now, some 7.5 years ago, we would point to that tiddly little £20 million market cap company coming with a 6.5–7 million pounds of revenue and 100 people, and it somewhat seems unrecognizable now.
I think it's been incredible, and I think it's also been a very busy 2020 as well, given the acquisitions we've worked on together. So Reflective and eThink in the US, as well as eCreators in Australia. And one thing I found was not having the ability to travel overseas, put your feet on the ground, meet with the sellers or the vendors, etc. Everyone's got this insane haircut because they haven't had a haircut for about 3 months now.
I have now. It's done.
But it must be. We're generally used to going on site as part of the due diligence process. Seeing how the immediate reaction to vendors when you ask the question, seeing who's answering them, and also seeing who are the key management personnel who we may have missed. Who's important in the organisation going forward. How have you found the process over the last 12 months with the volume of acquisitions you've been doing?
There are up and down sides with it all, aren't there? Of course. So the other part that perhaps you didn't mention, which I think is also really important, is building that personal relationship. Over a drink after the meeting or dinner or whatever. Of course, you lose all the opportunity for that. We found that if we have to plan our meetings even more thoroughly in terms of our commercial diligence meetings, and we like to have to do two different style of meeting. One with a cast of, as I call it, cast of thousands, where you do a lot of listening and just do lots of provocative questioning and see whether you can tease out opinions from a lot of the group, and you begin to try and get that sense of the breadth and capability of the management team from that, and then go into more focused meetings with individuals. That's how we've organized ourselves, and we're forensic in the detail that we try and take. Video calls are, they're good in some respects. We don't believe that we would have got 3 deals done this year. You remember the intense period of time when we were working with you in January and February to do a San Francisco and a Salt Lake City based complex acquisitions, one a carve out, and also to do that deal in the UK all at the same time. We would have failed if we tried to do that when we were on planes. So there are some advantages, but yeah, you have to recognize that there are some difficulties as well. We were fortunate in that we didn't know the reflective team at all. That was new to us, but we did know the bridge management team. So there was an element of prior relationship that we could lean on. And with the UK acquisition of PDT, we actually did meet them a couple of times when we were allowed to. So we had a bit of a combination of different factors there.
I think that's helpful indeed. And I guess it's coming up to nearly a decade since we've been working together, the auditors prior to the IPO,
Yep.
as well as the listing, as well as the M&A support thereafter. I guess we feel we've got a good understanding of your business systems and culture, but obviously culture is very different. You know, culture is different in the wider LTG organization, but each jurisdiction has its own different culture as well. I mean, our view is there's no sort of one size fits all in terms of the acquisitions you've sort of made. How have you found the support that's been provided by the Crow team, and any areas you may want to highlight?
Look, without sounding too sort of praising, as it were, and certainly wanting to sound authentic and realistic, we have been on. You've been on this journey with us. Although I've done a couple of acquisitions in my time before becoming public, the 16 deals we've done since then have been far more intense. I would argue that you'll probably agree with me that the one that felt like the sea change of intensity and complexity was Net Dimensions back in 2017. Obviously, it was another AIM listed company. We were working to a whole new different dimension and agenda in that regard. We've just always found that you and your team, Mitesh, have stepped up and matched what we required. As you know, we have the great benefit of our M&A director being a 20 years veteran of private equity. Peter Gordon really knows what he's doing. He brings that perspective, and he is. I lean on him quite a lot because clearly he's worked with many professional advisors over the years, and he is incredibly complimentary about the flexibility and the approach to your team. And the bit that I find most useful, because I'm at certain stages of that process, is the fact that I'm reading the same consistent type of reporting from you every time over. You know what we're looking for. You know what to highlight. You give me easy, fast reading. I can digest it in the executive summary, or I can go into all of the other detail later. And you just feel part of the team, and it works incredibly well. Thank you.
No, and we enjoy it as well. And yeah, likewise, we do feel part of the team. So thank you. And I think one thing as a partnership or as a firm we've realised was the sort of digital learning that COVID's driven in organisations. We've started obviously having a number of courses with facilitators. There's been how have you seen the demand for digital learning change due to COVID, and how have you adapted to this?
In general, it's been positive. As you know, and the market knows, this time last year, so March, April last year, we saw an initial curtailment of in-flight projects with the major airlines and retail and hospitality clients that we have, for obvious reasons. They were reeling from the pandemic. And so initially we saw a downturn in our content business, but our software business remained very strong and stable. Through the time where everyone, I suppose the astonishing fact to realize is that corporates still train over 50% of their training is done in the classroom, amazingly, even when we've got all these digital assets at our fingertips. And that's what the pandemic has really done. It's changed that whole paradigm completely. And so now we're in a situation where companies are coming to us and saying, will you please convert our entire corporate learning academy, which was predominantly facilitator-led training, to digital-led training? And we do it in what we call a blended approach. So we turn the knowledge and theory elements into bits that you learn online, and then you have chance for a one-to-one or one-to-many interaction with a facilitator, where you can explore what you've learned and get some expert interaction, and then you do some more practicing and simulations online thereafter to cement that understanding. And that process is working really well, and I don't see us ever going back to a situation where corporate learning is done half of it in the classroom.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, that's what we've seen as well in our organisation, but also, I guess, feedback from your clients. I've seen LTG has been awarded Strategic Leader by Fosway 9 Grid. What does that mean to you and the team?
It's a great relief when we get it, because it's our 5th year in a row that we've received that award, and we are at that top right hand corner of the grid, which I'm told is the right place. I hope it is. And we always worry whether we're going to get pipped to the post or not. So yeah, it's a really nice accolade to have. What I tell you though is it's very thoroughly researched by Fosway. I mean, the advocacy that they expect from our customers for us to get that rating is really strong indeed. So it's not a fudge. It really is a serious accolade. So yeah, it means a lot to us, and I think it's reflective of the breadth of capabilities we've assimilated over the last 7 years, and also the way that now. And there's been some luck and judgment here. Now the way that those are beginning to combine to provide solutions for customers. So for a very major global energy company recently that wanted to promote the efficacy of its product range, mainly its engine oil product range, to hundreds of thousands of small dealers around the world who are selling their products. And these are people who don't sit in front of a desktop computer. They might be a mechanic in a pit underneath a car during the day. So clearly access to them is not via a desktop. So we created mobile learning, and we then had to incentivize them to do the learning with prizes and discounts on products and leaderboards, and then do lots of analytics about whether the learning was having an effect on them selling more of that product. And it's been an absolute resounding success. So those are the types of project that we love to get involved in. They're very innovative.
Oh, perfect, and hopefully you'll remain on the top spot in the years to come. I think over the last few years we've seen obviously LTG grow relatively rapidly, as you mentioned earlier on. I mean, how do you handle this growth? And I know integration is very important, and I've worked with obviously Nick and the team in terms of integrating some of the acquisitions you've made. But how do you blend the sort of mix of personalities in the various acquisitions you've made? Because it clearly isn't straightforward when it's multi-jurisdiction, different time zones and different cultures, I guess. How do you pick and choose?
It's anything but straightforward. And I think the answer is not to try and impose too much. So there were a few golden rules that we carried into this whole journey of acquiring. We're very lucky in that our chairman is obviously a very experienced person in terms of M&A. So and Peter indeed as well. So we had lots of input to start with, to the golden rules not to get wrong. So for instance, one of the things that we have always honoured is how often Brits can make a mistake by flying over the pond and buying American businesses. We always have American leadership of our businesses. So I'm of course alongside those leaders, but we work very closely with senior Americans in situ, and we don't try and be the sort of Brits who go over there and start stamping our feet. We think that's really important. And continuing that theme and extrapolating from that, it's about respecting local cultures. So we ask very much during the diligence process, as pre-deal, we get a philosophical sign-up by management teams to 5 core values that LTG expects, and they're inoffensive. I mean, the sorts of things you would expect: accountability, trust, integrity, customer focus on customer service, that type of thing. And then we say, but we're absolutely encouraging of local cultures being maintained and respected and encouraged. So that seems to work really well. And we also try, whilst we're very specific about the fiscal disciplines that we have in the business, that we have very reliable margins. We're very balanced in our focus on the fundamentals. Yes, growth is really important to us, but we also want to combine that with great margins, good profitability, and exceptional cash conversion. Those we think are the fundamentals that keep the whole virtuous circle going, enable us to finance further acquisitions, etc. So those principles are really important to us, and therefore we do have a rigorous set of criteria that we expect leadership teams to comply with. But apart from that, we do allow a lot of autonomy in terms of the way the businesses are run. And then finally, as we've grown further, 16 deals, I don't know whether you're still counting, but you've helped us on 16 deals over this 7 years, Mitesh. And we try very hard, unless it's genuinely utterly unique and it's bringing a whole new capability into the group, we go, what do we do? We crunch that, or we combine that together with something else. So although we've done that many deals, we actually really have 10 business units operating within the group. And that feels just about manageable.
Yeah, perfect, excellent. And finally, looking ahead, I think we've touched on this briefly regarding blended learning, but how do you see the digital learning market changing in the future, post-COVID?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think we've got a number of factors going on. I'm really curious to see how this whole remote working or what might become a hybrid version of that turns out. Clearly, the genie's out of the bottle forever on the idea that most businesses that were desk office based with a computer screen in front of them can now operate in a more remote way. We've got plenty of people who like the idea of going back to the office for interaction with colleagues, some more than others, but that we're going to find that we're going to land on a hybrid version. I think. I don't think we're going to go back to one extreme where everyone has to be in the office, or we're going to stay in this extreme at the moment where everyone works from home. It's going to end up somewhere in the middle. I think that's going to have some interesting challenges in its own right, and they will undoubtedly affect the way we learn, and perhaps more importantly, in a broader sense, the way we support people. So to give you a few examples, how do you deal with multimodal meetings where you've got some people on video dialing in from home and other people meeting in a meeting room in the office? How do they not feel a second-class citizen on the video screen? What do you do about trying to still encourage all of that wonderful informal knowledge that gets learned by the new person in the organization who's imbuing themselves in the culture, finding out how to do things from their colleagues, asking someone on the desk opposite them when you're going to have this patchy attendance level. So you can't do that instantaneous pick something up by osmosis over a prearranged video call. It doesn't work like that. So we're thinking that from a technology perspective, we've just got to be a supporter and an enabler of those sorts of things. And one of the things that we're considering is how do we begin to find the pockets of expertise in the organization and enable them to be referenceable. So if you respect the fact, and I certainly do, that we only learn a relatively small amount of all the knowledge that we gain in our working lives from actual formal learning, be it in the classroom or on e-learning or whatever. The majority of the learning we do is very much more informal conversations with colleagues, etc., or water cooler, etc. And if that's the case, then we've got to find a way of supporting those people with the knowledge and those people that need the knowledge to get together. And we're looking at a number of different technologies that can begin to achieve that. So I think things will change quite a bit. There's no question that the output of this pandemic and the future way we're going to work is favorable to the whole hygiene factors for more digital learning. I also think the other thing that's going to happen is that you will begin to get far more discrete recommendations of learning in the flow of work. So we will begin to be able to sniff what you're actually doing and understand it from a data perspective, and therefore give you tips and tricks and prompts about what can help support you in that task or activity. And they might be very small and they should be very quickly consumed. And you might, if we're doing our job well, they'll get to the point where they really are in the flow of work and you don't really even notice that they're happening, but they're there to support you and assist you, rather than I'm going to go and do a half-hour formally learning course on something. They'll exist, of course, as well. And I know that you and your colleagues love all of those compliance-y learning courses, but they are a necessary part of the overall mix. That's the other thing. I cannot see any aspect of this world becoming less regulated or less compliance focused. I see that as continuing, if not accelerating. And therefore, we also, of course, play a really important role in ensuring the competence and appropriateness of the license to operate, if you like, of many regulated workforces around the world. And that I'm sure will continue.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting next 24 months or 12 months. Jonathan, thank you for your time. It's been an incredible journey with the IPO and 16 acquisitions, and fun to be part of it. And thank you to the audience for listening. You'll find more about our interviews and insights at www.crow.com/UK. Thank you.